Carissa. This is Scott. We are absolutely thrilled to be here. Just an echoing the thank you to our Creative Mornings morning hosts and our Frog Plus Plus team for having us in this beautiful space, and to all of you for coming out, because truth be told, this is the energizing cap that I needed on this week. And having all of you here with us talking about building a better future feels like the right thing for how to end this Friday. We're here to talk about our new book, Assembling Tomorrow. And what this book about is what we call runaway design, which is something I think all of you can relate to. This idea that the tools that we are building with and the things that we are making with those tools go out into the world, continue to change, morph, have effects beyond what our initial intentions may have been for them. Those tools are, of course, things like AI, things like DNA, synthetic biology type tools, but also things like our emotions and other forces that are happening inside of our bodies. And so runaway design to us is examining what are those forces that are making this world the way it is, and what can we do about it. The book, this is the you're looking at the pages on the side of the book here. There are a few copies floating around the room. It's divided into two main parts. The first part are the intangible forces that are making right now feel wild and wacky and making us be very off kilter in many ways. And these are forces like flow and interconnection, but also our propensity to tell stories and on our minds making make-believe, and again, like our feelings and emotions. And then the back of the book, we call the actionables. And this is where we talk about what are the things we can do to halt runaway design, to call attention to it, to know that we're paying attention to the effects of what we're making and shepherding what we create forward in a responsible way.
We'll start in with the intangibles, and I feel off kilter right now. And I think there are many, many examples of how the world is kind of falling apart, right? And why is that? Why is that happening right now? What are the forces that make that happen? Are they under our control? This idea of the intangibles is looking at the things that are highly consequential, but we may not have control over. But we do have control over how we see them and how we interpret them. So I'll give you one example from the past. This is the Yangtze River in China. The Yangtze bisects north and south the same way that the Mississippi bisects east and west in the US. It's interesting because it creates these two agricultural zones. North of the river, they grow wheat. South of the river, they grow rice. And a bunch of researchers from Ann Arbor and from China interviewed about 1,500 people to try and figure out what were the cultural differences between North and South. And generally, they looked at the North tends to be more independent-minded. The South tends to be more collective-minded. And that's measured through things like patent applications. So independent-minded areas like this one tend to have more patent applications. They tend to have higher divorce rates. It's true. Those go hand in hand, believe it or not. I wonder if, there's something there. And then also they did like psychological studies, language, sentiment analysis. And the thought is that it might have something to do with the way that agriculture developed. So if you look at how rice is grown, does anybody know why they flood rice paddies? I never knew this. Yeah. Magnus.
I believe it's to control other weeds and stuff like that.
Yeah, sorry.
You have to grow rice in water, but
you do not.
Weeds do not grow in water.
That's right. It's like a pesticide, basically. Yeah, they flood it, which I never knew. And thank you, Magnus. Which I never knew and is really amazing. But it creates this situation where you have to share water. And like this paddy has to get flooded and then that one has to get flooded. So you have to work with the nearby farmers to be able to make sure that the water's getting to the right place. Whereas when you grow wheat, back in the day, you're dependent on the rainy season, but you can pretty much grow it on your own. You don't have to coordinate with other people. So the thought is that the way we cultivated crops, and this is thousands of years ago, they did this study in 2014, and most people in the study were not growing crops. but the culture of that collectivism that came from growing crops in this way sustained over time. They call it rice theory. It's just a theory, but it makes a lot of sense. And then the question is, what crops are we interacting with right now that are shaping who we are and where we might be going? And we'll get into that toward the end of the talk, but right now we're going to shift into, well, what can we do about that? So there are these forces that we really don't totally have control over, but they're influencing us. So the actionables will kind of get us into how can we notice them so that we can decide how we want to engage with them. And we have three things we're going to talk about today: monsters, meaning, and metaphors. Those are our three actionables to share. We'll get into them in a second. But just to also talk about the book, there are these colored striped pages along the book. Those are all fiction. And we use a lot of fiction in the book to just imagine what the future is, because we feel like if you can imagine what the future is, you can kind of shape where you want to go right now. So if we can imagine, we can then make decisions. So we'll talk a little bit about one of those make-believe aspects right now. And that's monsters. Take it away, Carissa.
All right, I love monsters. Are you all familiar with these monsters that you may have seen on really old maps? Okay, so here's one up here on the Carta Marina. This is in the 1500s. And when you see these map monsters, they are amalgamations of something that was seen and known and something that is make-believe. And it's worth knowing that these old maps were really used less so as navigational tools, but more so as encyclopedias of the time. So when you are looking at one of these maps, what you're looking at is a whole spread about what is known about what is there, what boundaries might be there. But then also when you see a creature like this, it likely represents the fact that there probably was a seafarer that saw a spout of water go by and a glimpse of a creature, but had no real sense of, is this something that is dangerous? Is this something that is going to be beneficial to us in our journey? But by putting it on here, even though it may have been feared, right, it keeps it in the public psyche, right? It's a way of almost citing what was there so that others can pick up where they left off and build on it and continue to study a phenomenon, even though they didn't know how it would come to pass. So when we think about how can we bring this concept of highlighting monsters that are in our own work today and what we know and what we may fear, this is something we like to do literally, right? So let me just say this the right way. In the tech world, there tends to be a lot of hubris, right? We want.
Are you familiar with this at all?
We want to believe that what we make is going to be incredible, right? But the reality is everything will end up, even if it doesn't break, breaking something, affecting someone, shifting some system. So how do we get better at, when we launch our ideas into the world, calling attention to what we believe and know about them, but also the parts of it that feel unknown to us and a little bit maybe even icky, like we need to pay attention to it. All right, so we're gonna try to get everybody here to draw a monster. All right, there was paper, there was a pen. Yeah. We're gonna give you an example real fast. Here's a little equation for your monster. It's something that is unknown, either in your work or in the world. Like, don't worry too much. Something that's unknown to you, combined with a glimpse of truth that you know based on your personal experience. And here's one that I made. I call it the thought revealer. This thing bores into your brain, right? And it has this periscope for spying on me through my data. It has cilia for broadcasting what it learns out into the world. This open door reveals a secret that I didn't even know about myself. It has hands for manipulating my beliefs. And the reality, right, is I'm actually really worried that AI may know me better than I know myself, and is shaping me in ways that I'm not entirely in control of. And I'm actually very afraid of that. So by making this a monster shape, I'm calling attention to it. It makes it something we could all talk about. Scott's, here's one that he made. He calls it the DNA data leaker. we have all just like spewed our DNA all over this space. If you think about a world where that can be captured, used for a whole range of reasons, like you have no control over where it goes. What does that create? What's okay? What are the boundaries of our privacy? All right, we're going to give you 2 minutes to try to draw a monster.
All right, so you should have markers, really good markers, actually. I'm
Beautiful.
impressed. That wasn't me. That was the Creative Mornings team. Yes, we'll get your equation going. There you go. And don't overthink it. It's just something that in your work or life is on your brain that you just want to get out, and draw it as a monster. If anyone needs a pen, we've got pens coming around right now. Yep. We're gonna have 1 more minute, so don't worry. Wherever you land is fine. You don't have to be done.
Give it a title. If you write one thing on your paper, give it a title.
Naming your monster is very important. I know that one, and that one's in here too. Probably about 20 seconds left. I won't count down. I feel like that's like a little aggressive. So what you're going to do now is just find somebody next to you. It can be 2 people sharing with each other, a group of 3. Keep it under 3 though, because we're just going to have to share pretty quickly. And just share your monster with someone next to you. And headline it. We don't have a ton of time this morning. We want to get you guys to work or wherever you are going after this. So just find somebody near you, share your monsters, explain what's going on your paper. Go ahead. say, make sure everybody gets to share. If you haven't shared, just make sure everybody gets to share. We're gonna do 7. Yeah, okay. Split the diff. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna try and get like All right, all right. Thank you so much. We're gonna keep going. Please bring your attention back to the stage. Thank you, everybody. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. You're on my team. I see you. All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Almost there. Almost there. I know. All right. Thanks. Thanks. Please. This is always the worst part is breaking up happy conversations, but we're going to do it. Do you want to chat about what came out?
I would love to hear just two quickly. Like, who had one in your group that you would love to share with all of us? We got one here.
Holly.
So this is FOMO, being pulled in all these different directions and even directions that there's no door.
I hear that.
Love
Wow,
it.
well shared too, by the way. Yeah, over here.
This is the brain miner, and it's taking technology to mine our brains and emotions to turn it around for profit.
I think
And
that
this is actually a TED Talk that I just listened to on the podcast.
I love that you converted a TED Talk into a monster, and that which there's something, and also like that one's with us already for sure. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for making monsters with us. I mean, honestly, we would love to see these on your way out. We'll leave a little space to drop them if you don't mind leaving them. By putting a monster down on paper, hopefully what you felt from sharing that is some resonance with the person next to you in a way to both express in a visual form, right, to give it a little bit of stickiness, as well as the label of here's what I'm calling it. A way to express those parts of our work that are evolving, and it's not that we shouldn't be working on them, but we need to be paying attention to what we're doing along the way. All right, let's hit meaning really quick. What do we mean by meaning? As humans, we love to make stories and make sense of the patterns and information we see around us. What's that? Okay, yeah. So I heard equal parts the sun and equal parts a smiley face, right? Because as humans, this is a phenomena called apophenia or pareidolia, where we see faces in things, right? We are wired to do that as little babies because we need to recognize our parents. And that carries through in life. We not just see faces, but we take information and we try to make sense of it. And this is both something to be aware of, because sometimes it's nonsense. But on the flip side of that, sometimes this is a very designer creative ability, is that we are the people that can pull together those disparate things and have that epiphany, see that insight that nobody else could see before. Here's another example. This is Nina Kachadorian's moss maps. I love them, right? This is just moss labeled as the different Hawaiian islands. And if you think about it, though, right, when we think of looking at any lens, any experience of the world, right, my making sense of it is different from yours, even if we're experiencing the same thing. And you know this, right? You have an argument with somebody, and we both were in the same situation, but we saw it differently, and you're butting heads over it. But you see it in our work, right? This is Cape Cod, Massachusetts, East Coast, Scott and I. Can
Shout
you
out.
be excited about that?
Yeah. We are in San Francisco,
I know.
after all. This went over great at MIT.
We
They
did.
just
We
killed.
did. Right. This is geologic map. Right. This is one way of seeing this place. Right. Here's a very artistic, line drawn, narrative way to see this place, where you can think about here's where you go play putt. Here's the best frozen yogurt. It's a different lens on the exact same place, right? Different experiences of the same thing. And then when you blow this out, it's not just humans that have these many different experiences of the same place, but you can take that to the natural world too. Any type of living creature uses many more senses than we do. These are butterflies, they taste with their feet. You can think about plants that, in some of the latest work, it's shown that plants communicate possibly, and then people are saying the word communicate through the cavitation of this is the popping of the bubbles in their stems, right? And so they can understand and communicate with each other in a number of different ways. And I feel like we're just on the brink of understanding beyond us as people how the living world is experiencing this same place as us. And really, it's all about thinking of it as you do at the eye doctor, right? When they put the different lenses, does this look clear? Is there something? Is there an epiphany here? And so, right, as designers, we spend our time saying, can I make meaning out of these two experiences of the world if I overlap them? So one way that we do that is through different types of mapping. This is actually, I had a student that came up with this. We have them pull two random things from their backpack and find what makes them, what is the relationship they have in common to stretch this skill, right? So she's got the sunscreen and the tampon and make them label the overlap. Things I forget to use until it's too late. It's always my favorite. Right, so mapping is one technique, and then another technique, right, to see these possibilities, to find the epiphany, is to look at places where it's beyond your sphere of doing it. We call it shape shifting, like going into a different environment. A number of years ago, Scott and I worked on a project where we were looking at the future of higher education, and in particular, in-person learning at a time when the MOOCs were really big, the massive online classes, and there was a lot of buzz saying, hey, the world's going to be all online when it comes to learning in university systems. And we said, well, let's look at places where in-person learning is really, really paramount. And how do they set that up? And so this is a shot of Cirque du Soleil behind the scenes. So this is people learning in a high-stakes environment. And how can we pull insights from that into our education system? So shape-shifting different disciplines is another way. Oops, wrong way.
It's a good one, though. That's a good slide. All right, metaphors. We're going to talk about metaphors pretty quickly. These are the humors that the Greeks used to think controlled the body, and they all related to elements in the natural world like fire, air, water. And the interesting thing about this was a fully mistaken metaphor. This doesn't make any sense at all, but it was one of the first times in the Western world, at least, where people started associating health issues with the body, which is weird to think about. Before that, it was like divine intervention, right? So they weren't even looking at the body for solutions to health problems. So the fact that they could look at these humors, that metaphor opened up this whole idea of working with the body. So they started doing autopsies and they started figuring things out. So that's what metaphors do. They highlight and hide. There are big sweeping metaphors that move through our cultures. Like the one right now is everything is data. Everybody's talking about nature as data, and it's all like it's communication, it's information. And that metaphor, it shows us certain things, it reveals certain things, and it really hides others. So actually just popping back real quick. This is a drawing from the 1930s in China. It's the body as a factory. So like during the industrial age, everything was a machine. Nature is a machine. The body's a machine. And the thing is, you have to think about like, how is that shaping our perception? And how is that shaping what we see and what we don't see? So we've been collecting metaphors about generative AI. And the first one that came out very quickly with our students was, it's a calculator for words, right? What does that metaphor highlight? It's a tool, and we can use it, and we can control it, and it's going to be fine, right? And that's true to some degree. Then, very quickly, it was like, oh, it's nuclear weapons or nuclear energy. And what does that highlight? Well, existential threat and treaties and getting ahead of this and controlling it and it being out of control. So which one of these is right? Right? We don't know. So the one we've been landing on is margarine. Margarine. It's hydrogenated oil. We've had these synthetic things around for a while. This is now synthetic intelligence. We had synthetic butter. And what happened? Exactly, I can't believe it either, but we thought it was healthy. This was the healthy thing to eat. And now it's banned, right? So like, what does that metaphor tell us? Now, which one's right? Which one's wrong? They're all right. They're all right. There's parts of those that are just right. The calculator for words is right. The nuclear weapons is right. But they only show us certain things. So a very, very good tool is to just watch your metaphors, watch other people's metaphors, and don't be afraid to mix them. We're on the verge of something. We began the talk talking about we're in a journey into the future. It does feel like things are flying apart. Not going to lie, not going to pretend that everything feels great. But if we can look at it the right way, those pieces that are flying apart are also waiting to be put back together. They're also waiting to be assembled in a new way. And if we can put on the right metaphor, if we can kind of judge the way we make meaning and we can see it, we'll see those opportunities. So our hope for you is that you can just take a moment as this journey fast into the future washes over us with runaway design and just look for the pieces that might be able to come together. I think that's time or so. So thank you. Thanks for going on the journey with us.